What gadget should you be focusing on to get as soon as possible? And what one should you really not care about or try to avoid? The best way to answer that, I think, is to rank gadgets from best to worst and putting them in a tier. And probably the best way to find those good rankings is to ask the best players in Brawl Stars what they think of each gadget. And that's exactly what we did. So let's do it. Now these are the pros that helped us make the gadget tier list. All of these guys have been pro players in Brawl Stars for a long time, and they're all trying to win and qualify for the Brawl Stars World Championship. Definitely follow these guys, links to do so down below. By the way, I'll have a tier list for the best and worst brawlers overall coming soon, so if you don't want to miss that, definitely subscribe. Alright, now gadgets in Brawl Stars aren't exactly very balanced. There's some gadgets that are way too strong, but there's also a lot of gadgets that are just almost useless. And we have 5 F-tier gadgets, which is kind of insane and really shows you that we need some balance changes for gadgets. Alright, let's start out with the worst gadget in Brawl Stars. And that's going to be the spinning boy Dynamite. Yes, it's fantastic. He gets to spin, but that's honestly really all it does. It rarely hits anyone. It takes too much time to have all the dynamites fly out, and he's often more vulnerable while he's doing that. He's going to take more damage more often than not than the damage he dishes out. If you get 2 hits with this gadget, that's honestly a good use of it. And that's pretty sad. It's definitely the worst. The second worst, though, it's another spinning one. It's Daryl's. Daryl's gadget is basically just as useless. Maybe you can roll on the safe, and if you happen to have no ammo, then you will find finally a good use for Daryl's gadget. But pretty much otherwise, you'd almost always rather just do a normal attack than use Daryl's gadget. So really, it's very, very bad. Number 33, still F tier, is Carl's gadget. He puts a little trail of fire. But man, it's very rare to ever get much damage with this gadget. It kind of makes sense, like it's kind of cool. You can use his super and then have a trail of fire, but really the amount of damage you get with this gadget is so low throughout a game, you really don't get very many good uses. At 32, it's gonna be Piper's gadget. Now this one, I will say there is one actually good use for this gadget, but it's very specific, and that is if you are in Showdown and you have the Robo boss up. You can use the gadget on that if you have the, not rolling reel, it's snappy sniping star power, and you will get a lot of ammo back, and that's actually good. But otherwise, it almost gets no damage, and it rarely ever hits anything. So really, that one use is actually the only reason it's even ranked this high. You could definitely justify ranking it lower. That's how freaking bad it is. But the other F-tier gadget, it's gotta be B's. Dude, why does B have a slowing gadget? She has a super which slows people down with a much longer range and actually does damage that only takes 3 hits to charge. So it makes no sense. Honestly, the best use of this gadget is a 1000 health shield, but if you're facing someone who attacks through objects, well, too bad. It's actually completely worthless almost at that point. So really, it's a very bad gadget. All right, moving through the bad gadgets pretty quickly here. Now into the D tier. We got 4 gadgets here. These ones aren't quite useless, but they're pretty close. At 30, it's going to be 8-Bit's gadget, allowing him to teleport. Don't get me wrong, this is one of the coolest gadgets in the game, and you can get for some cool clickbait moments where someone is honestly probably being dumb and you trick them because they don't understand how 8-Bit's gadget works. But really, this gadget tends to not get much use, and if you said this should be F tier, that's probably the reality, because 8-Bit has a whole star power dedicated to improving his turret, and then he also has a gadget dedicated to destroying his turret. Do you see something wrong with this picture? Because there's something wrong with this picture. Alright, moving on. 29 is going to be Barley's gadget. Barley's gadget, it actually sounds like it could be pretty useful for him. A slowing sort of puddle, allowing him to maybe get more hits. But the reality is, Barley is a low health brawler who attacks over walls, and he really doesn't want enemies close to him. So he's honestly probably not having many great uses for this. You can sometimes use it on tanks if they're maybe not being smart, or on the Robo, and you will get a small amount of use. That's why it's in D tier, not F tier. Unlike B's gadget, Barley's gadget does get a little bit of use, but it's not that great. At 28 is going to be El Primo's gadget. This is another funny gadget, and you can get some weird moments with this. In Brawl, you might actually get a little bit of use out of it. In most other modes, you're really probably not. In Brawl, you kind of can, you know, take the ball away from an enemy or push them out of the way of a goal. That can be not bad, but in most cases, there's not a lot of great uses for this gadget. At 27 is going to be Tick. Tick's gadget sounds not bad, but the reality is Tick is an extremely defensive brawler that is actually really difficult to even approach. He attacks over walls, and he has 3 mines that you really do not want to step towards. If you are a smart Tick player, you should be able to keep most enemies away, no problem, and you probably don't need this gadget that much, and it honestly doesn't even go back very far as escaping wise. So it's not that it has no use, it definitely has a little bit, but it's just not that great. Alright, now into the C tier where we have, again, 4 gadgets, but these gadgets are still not that great, although they definitely have a little bit more usefulness, but they're not very consistent. At number 26 is going to be Bo's gadget. Look, this one also sounds really cool. You can charge your super for free, but the reality is if you are camping charging your super, you are probably giving up position. Now in Showdown, this is totally fine because you can just camp and let the enemies fight each other while you charge up your super, but otherwise you tend to not really want to be sitting in one place. The radius of this is very, very small, so you're not always going to be able to use this and have great positioning. All right, you know what? Let's do these next 2 at once because they're just very similar and so is their usefulness. At 25 is Rico and at 24 is Spy. Both of these guys are very low health brawlers and their gadgets fire out shots from the center of their body, so if you're closer to them, it gets more usefulness and you can probably get more hits, but again, you don't really want to be that close unless maybe you're Spike and you're right next to a wall and you have fertilizer, in which case, okay, you can get some use out of it, or if you're like right next to a high safe, that's not bad, but again, a lot of times you're only going to get 1 hit, maybe you're going to get 2, and that's pretty solid. Pretty rare to get 3, but the reality is you don't get a lot of overall damage with these gadgets. So they're not bad, but not great. And at 23 is going to be Mr. P's gadget. The best use of this is definitely trying to use it right as your porter is going to die, and then you have a solid health boost, and it can be certainly not bad. I mean, definitely pushes the enemy back a little bit. It's definitely kind of useful, but it's not exciting, and it's just not that great. It's okay, though. All right, now into the B tier gadgets. These ones, if you get them, you're starting to feel pretty happy because these ones are actually pretty good. They're not amazing, but they're definitely solid with certain uses. At 22 is going to be Leon's gadget. Another really cool gadget, but not always going to get great value. In Showdown, it can be really good scouting out enemies, and if you have your super, possibly confusing them. It's such a wide map, it can actually be quite good in Showdown. In 3v3, it's not nearly as consistent. If you're only using it when you have your super, you might be able to confuse some enemies, but honestly, some people might really catch on quickly and know that it's just a gadget and there's really nothing to fear. But it's definitely somewhat useful. All right, at 21 is Sandy's gadget. This one, I mean, look, it heals him completely to full health, so the potential for this is really good. Of course, it's also a little bit risky since he has to stand still, and that's why it's lower at 21. Definitely useful, but a bit risky. At 20 is Mortis's gadget. This one's a little bit awkward to use, but Mortis definitely appreciates extra damage. It's not a lot of extra damage, but it's some, so it's not bad for sure. At 19 is Pam. Instant healing and for multiple allies can be really good, but of course the caveat is you have to have your turret up and alive, and you have to be inside the turret. So it has potential good use, but again, not always going to be able to get it. At 18 is Penny. Penny's gadget, look, Penny appreciates extra damage. As a low damage brawler, having the potential to do extra damage and knockback can be really useful for Penny, especially defending versus a tank or anything like that. At 17 is Shelley. A dash for Shelley is really useful, allowing her to close the gap and get close to enemies, allowing her to deal more damage, or even if you need, it can be an escape, also making her more useful in Brawl Ball for scoring goals, or just in general, like I said, for extra damage. At 16 is Max. Max's gadget basically the same as Shelley's and also just as useful, and especially in Brawl Ball, it makes Max that much more dangerous. But as a speedy brawler, having even more speed is quite good. At 15 is Colt. This one is actually surprisingly good, where there's a lot of situations where you can find, hey, I'd like a little bit more ammo. This is actually pretty good, especially in Heist. If you are free to shoot the safe, man, you can deal a lot of damage. All right, now into our biggest category, we have 9 A-tier gadgets. These ones are quite good, and you definitely want to target any and all of these gadgets. At 14 is going to be Taurus' gadget, allowing her to see the whole field, and this includes any invisible invisible Leons and anyone in a Sandy super, and those two things right there makes this a little bit less map dependent, but it is still a map dependent gadget, so that's why it's lower at 14, but it's quite good, still A tier. At 13 is BB. BB's gadget allows for a lot of potential healing, but the big caveat is it's a little bit slow, taking 4 seconds. A lot of times people go, okay, once you engage in a fight, you take damage pretty fast, and they tend to use their gadget a little bit too late. That's where it's a little bit of a lower ranking, even though the potential is quite high, considering at number 12 is going to be Bull. Even though it's less health, the instant healing is quite good, and it suits Bull pretty well. Both of these are aggressive brawlers, but they both have instant healing over slow healing. It takes 3 seconds for BB to heal more than Bull's gadget. They're both good, but the instant healing is a little bit better. At 11 is Jessie's gadget, allowing her to slow enemies near her turret. This can be quite good for Jessie, allowing her to shoot her turret with her energized star power and bounce shots pretty easily, or just bounce shots off enemies pretty easily, or even it works kind of better with Shocky too, allowing, again, more bounce shots. So, I mean, Jessie having a better turret is definitely a good thing. At 10 is going to be Poco. Now, if this was just a Brawl Ball gadget tier list, this would be definitely S tier. I mean, in Brawl Ball, Poco's gadget is so freaking good. Everywhere else, you tend to not have your allies group up quite as much. If it might be a map where you know your allies are going to group up a lot, it can definitely be quite good, but the radius on this gadget is a little bit small. And like I was saying earlier, instant healing is better than overtime long period healing. And also with Poco, it's a little bit overkill, honestly. Already has a lot of healing in general, so it's not always a super needed gadget, but it has potential to be quite good. At number 9 is Frank. This one did get a nerf, but it's still pretty good, and of course it covers up Frank's biggest weakness. Although admittedly, the worst part about this gadget is you could actually face enemies who can't even stun you, and then it's just useless. But if you do face anyone who can, it's definitely good. At 8 is Brock's gadget. This one is actually one of the more fun gadgets in the game, and you can finesse people quite well with this jumping over walls or dodging enemy attacks, allowing you to stay alive. There's a lot of potential use for Brock's gadget. You can actually jump really far, and the radius for the explosion is actually pretty good. You're not really using it for damage, but the potential to dodge attacks or chase enemies over walls is really good and helpful for Brock. At 7 is Ems. Even though this got a nerf and you can only use it 2 times, it's still really good because it covers up M's biggest weakness. And not only that, you can knock the ball out of enemies' hands, you can hit multiple enemies. I mean, look, it's a good gadget, even if you can only use it twice a game. At 6 is Rosa. Rosa's gadget is extremely useful in 3v3, allowing you to get better control on the map and sneak up on enemies, but it's also really good in Showdown too, allowing you to camp easier, or your teammate as well if you're playing duos. I mean, look, there's a lot of potential uses for more grass for a tank, especially since she has a healing star power for when she's in grass. All right, now into the S tier, and we have 5 gadgets here. These gadgets are really good, and I would highly recommend targeting any of these gadgets right away if you can, and we're getting these brawlers to level 7 as soon as possible. At number 5, it's going to be Crow. Even though this one got nerfed, it is also still really freaking good and suits Crow really well. As a very low health brawler who has an aggressive super, having the shield can be very good for him, especially if you're carrying Crow. He can have the damage and the shield to be quite amazing, at least twice a game. At number 4, again, this one also got nerfed, but is still really good, and that's Sprout. 2,000 healing instantly for Sprout is really good and is the best instant healing in the game. Of course, you have to be in grass, but it can allow Sprout to be quite aggressive, or in any situation where you think you can kill that Sprout, all of a sudden he heals up 2,000 health. And he's even more annoying once again. And number 3 is Jean's gadget. This one also really good. Having not bad healing, which is good in a clutch pinch situation, or if you just want to protect your gems or whatever the situation might be, it's definitely a solid and really useful gadget for a lot of scenarios. At number 2 is Jackie's gadget. This one is insanely good on Jackie. Again, all of these gadgets so far have gotten nerfed, but they're still S tier because they were just way strong, and now they're still really strong. Jackie's gadget, a huge speed boost for a melee brawler that has an insanely high amount of health, is just really, really good. I don't think this one needs a lot of explanation. It's good pretty much everywhere. I mean, look, speed is great on a tanky brawler. But the best gadget in the game, goes to my girl, Nita. Nita's gadget is so freaking good, combined with Hyper Bear, allowing insane damage and also easy charging of another bear. It's just way too good and so strong with Nita. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out more great Brawl Stars tier lists right over there to help you improve that I'm sure you will enjoy. That is going to be it for today's video, though. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and I hope everyone is staying safe, and I'll catch you later.